Hey everybody, this is Eddie Dashes. We're here on the Handshake podcast, and we have Eric Johnson with us today. He's gonna tell us about his background, his current company position, and we're gonna dive deep into good, beautiful conversation because we feel like the industry need more people like him to tell what it's like to be an integrator and to do it to the highest level. Eric, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here, Eddie. Thanks for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you.
All right, perfect. So, one thing I like to ask my guests is, did you just get to the industry, or it was some most people they didn't know they were going to that industry and wanted to know what was your path look like?
Well, originally when I was in high school, I went into vocational, and I at the time it wasn't for me. I thought maybe I was going to go into the service, but the pathway originally, my brother was an electrician, and I used to work with him, side jobs, and I would be an extra pair of hands for him. So I learned the trade primarily through my brother Bill, um, and from there, I ended up working, started as an apprentice when I was 18 years old for a non-union company, and I went from there. This was around 1985, 1986, ancient history. I was 18 years old. And then from there, I had the opportunity to go to Mass General Hospital as an
Okay.
apprentice. So I went there and I worked at Mass General for almost 15 years, from 1986 to 2001. And while I was there, I went to night school. There's a famous teacher, Leo Martin, uh, taught the electrical code. I went to school nights over in Back Bay and on Newbury Street, and I ended up getting my license, my electrical license, while I was at Mass General. And then around 2001, I actually started my own company, and I was doing some work during the day. The industry was booming right around then. Locally in Boston, the work was being driven by the big dig.
Yep.
Everyone was working. There was a lot of startups. There was a ton of work. So it was a good time to start a business. But what I ended up doing was when you start your own business, it's hard. You're working you're working over 16 hours a day. You're looking at work, you're doing the work, you're billing. There's a lot to be said when you're starting out. And I have a lot of praise and a lot of admiration for people who start on their own, because if they stick with it, and when you're first starting out, it's tough. It's a
Yeah.
lot of hard work. So people that started like that, if they've been in business for a while, it's nothing's handed to them. It's a lot of hard work in the beginning, and I saw that. But so what I ended up doing was I had an opportunity to go work for the federal government. So I went in. We were doing At the time, we were doing a lot of conduit work for security and security systems. And when I was at Mass General, I pretty much, it was a good foundation at Mass General, because I was an electrician, but we worked on fire alarm systems. We worked on security systems. Mass General being the biggest employer of the state, it's like working within its own city,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone's been through the doors at Mass General. It's just a massive complex, massive campus. Uh, they've grown to offsites, in Charlestown and throughout Massachusetts. But at the time, I worked at the main campus, and it was a good foundation for me to learn different aspects of the trade, just not electrical. So working in the security and fire alarm, when I started my business, I kind of focused on that a little bit, because that's like the last 10 years that I worked at Mass General. That's what I pretty much focused on. So when I worked for the federal government, I had the opportunity to go work for them direct, even though I was doing security systems as a contractor. So I ended up working for the Federal Protective Service, which is part of Department of Homeland Security. It became in 2003, and I had the opportunity to run their tech systems, which encompassed the burglar systems, CCTV, access
Mm.
control, and that was for New England. That was, taking care of almost 400 offices and buildings throughout New England, which is
Wow.
Region One, and that also encompassed taking care of their radio system, their two-way radio system, which was
Ooh,
throughout New England. So I was introduced to that, and right when I started with the Federal Protective Service, the Democratic National Convention was in Boston in 2004. So we had a plan for that. So that was a learning curve as well for a big event, a national event, and it was 2 years after 9/11. So it was the first major event after 9/11.
wow.
So, and if you were around Boston at that time, it was pretty crazy with the security they had to put in place. So they didn't know it was, what may or may not happen. So um, we ended up with some cutting edge technology at the time, which was IP cameras were just, coming
I
out.
know.
Yeah,
I know.
it's
But let me ask you something, Eric, because we hear it a lot, and for me too. I think I'm part of this where we talk about the transition, but we don't go deeper on the behavior, the risk, because you said you started with a Mass General, but you got a big opportunity and then went somewhere else. So let's talk about the confidence level. You know, because you don't, it's you betting on yourself, right? And can you take us to that process? Or was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was in a better position because of coming from Mass General and
Okay.
seeing different products and different systems that we had there.
Yeah.
Um, Mass General is a 24/7 operation, right? There's a lot of places people, you have to maintain it. You have to keep, we saw, at Mass General, they have, it's backed up by generators, right? Not
Yes.
many people, which is a whole other skill level
I know. I know.
of getting in the industry. So we were able to work on emergency power, right?
Yeah.
So working at Mass General is different than the maintenance part of it, and maintaining equipment is different than the
Different.
construction side.
Yeah.
So and that's a whole other skill level of on building, building a structure or building a building. You have to have a skill set for that. So where it's more repetitive, it's more cookie cutter.
Mm.
The same floor is going to look like 10, 15, 20 floors are going to be the same. It's
Yeah.
all laid out the same.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
so it's repetitive, and you need to know what you're doing, to keep everything running there. But
Yeah.
I was lucky that on the maintenance side, and it was a 24/7 operation, I was able to take that skill set and move over to the federal government um, on maintaining systems, because
No,
critical systems.
and this is great because that's get me to my next question about transferable skill. And like for me, I started as a mechanic, didn't work out, and I said I wanted to go. I didn't know anything about locksmithing,
Mhm.
and I did a research. I found a school, I got enrolled, and next thing I'm a locksmith. But from being a locksmith, which teach you um attention to details, like no shortcut, because if you take a shortcut, it's gonna bite you later, and
Right.
got me to be a project manager. So can you talk about transferable skills, things you learn along from either your parents or either from different job you had that allow you to be better or successful in this in your current role?
Yeah, as I started out, as my brother got me into the trade. Working with him, and my brother had a very good mechanical aptitude. Whether it
Yes.
was, he became an electrician. He went through high school and ended up becoming an electrician. He worked at Mass General for many years himself, and went on to the union. Had a nice career at Local 103 IBW. But he was very mechanically inclined. which was taught. That could be vehicles, it could be um, you know building a house, doing a house over where now you take that electrical skill set and talking with other trades. It's like, well, I could do some drywall, or I could fix that. I could fix a
Yep.
hole, or put a door up, or whatever, right? It kind of you kind of you kind of get into the other trades just being around those other people that you work with. And if you have a good mechanical skill set as an electrician,
Yep.
you're gonna learn those other trades quicker, because it's different concepts, but you're gonna learn quicker. I think, because you're in the trade. And the thing is too, I think and I think this is true across anything that you do, whether it's vocational, lawyer, doctor. You have to have a passion for something, right?
Yeah.
So I think if anyone that has a passion, if you're going to do it well. If you're going to be in, no matter what the trade is, no matter what it is, I just don't think you can show up and do the job. You'll be okay, but are you going to succeed? You have to have a passion for something.
Passion. Yeah. You have to stick to it and then dedication. I know you teach as well. Can you take us to your journey on teaching? What do you see in terms of the next generation? Are you confident this guy is gonna take care of business?
Yeah, myself, and I'm probably a lot of people in the same way, is like, like I talked about when I was at the federal government, and IP cameras were just apparent coming on the scene in the early 2000s, and it's normal now, and pretty much the last 25 years have grown with the IP structure of CCTV, and
Yes.
there's other concepts have done along the way. Um, I see the younger generation now, they grew up with phones and computers,
Yeah.
and so it's right out of the cradle, they're exposed to the IT world, right? That it's just an extension for them. Where
Yeah.
someone like myself, where when cell phones became in the early 90s, and to the Apple phone, and the Google phones, the we had to learn quick,
Quick. Yeah.
adapt to it, because we were old school analog, and now everything was coming in, with the newer concept. So we had to, and I'm on the cusp where it's like, you didn't grow up with it. You had to, you're 30 years old. You have to adapt to it and learn a new system.
Yeah.
So I say, for the younger generation, they're in an advantage because they grew up with it, and
Yeah.
and that's where it's heading. That's where the industry is heading, is into smart buildings, smart technology, the software that you run for a job. Um, it, it's getting easier, but in the
Yeah.
same thing, you have to know what you're doing to make it easy.
Yes.
The
Yes.
stuff that some people don't see behind the background, of how you get that, to where you want to be. You have to have that aptitude to make it work. So I think that they're in a better position if you're younger, you grew up with it, that they can take those concepts that they use when they're, just having a phone or a computer. They're going to see that in the industry, and if you're smart like that, you're probably going to succeed a little bit better than someone who's not tech savvy, and has to learn quicker like we did.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
well said. No, no, well said. Because my question now is about the shift from hardware to interconnected devices, Internet of Things, IP cameras. Now you have IP speakers. So
Right.
let's talk about that shift, because you did well on that mechanical, obviously, and now you're still doing well on the interconnected world. Can you talk about that? 30 years ago, we still had some electrified hardware, but now we're seeing more a shift on a preference on IP cameras, IP speakers, interconnected devices. So, and the goal is, what I'm trying to get is mechanical still gonna be relevant regardless new technology. But some people they don't see it that way. Let's say somebody, my son is 7 now. Maybe when he's like 15, he's probably that not know that mechanical was if he doesn't do the research, because everything is
Right.
electronic based,
Right.
Internet of Things, your fridge, your microwave,
Right.
everything in your house is smart.
Right.
So he probably not know significant mechanical war is and still
Right.
relevant. So that was
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah, you still have to, and thank you for clarifying. Yeah, you still have to have that backbone, right? That background of I guess like I shouldn't say old school, but you have to have that structure to get to the anything that's smart building technology. You still have to have the building blocks,
Yeah,
as if you were still pulling a cable or doing old school methods. I'd say or what was considered new 25 years ago. You still have to have that mindset, as I
yeah.
see, to get where you want to be, because there again, there's a lot of things behind the scenes, um, you know to for a data drop. You still have to pull the cable.
Cable.
You still have to know the methods um, uh, of working within, whether it's a new building or whether it's a retrofit, right?
Yeah, yes.
There's still skills that that you go into an office and they want to install whatever it is, whether it's speakers or whatever it is that's IT related. You still have to have the aptitude to work in a ceiling and work in an office space, and those methods you still have to use those same concepts.
No, I agree. I have a mentor that told me any conversation you have, this question is related to networking, right? And I see your path where you had a great career, like critical. I think you work for the government, you work for MGH, now you with Lentel. And he said every networking opportunity person you meet, you should treat it as an interview because you don't know that person maybe in 2 years they might think of you. So you've been in places, great opportunities. How important you think is networking and how can you teach the next generation how to navigate that world?
That's a very good question. In my experience, you're as good as your network, right? You have to know who to reach out to. Part of this industry on the maintenance side of it, you're almost like a fireman, right? Because calls come in, you
Yeah,
know, fires,
right.
right?
You're right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Right? You're mitigating problems, right? So how do you mitigate those problems as fast as you can, right? It's not by yourself.
Yep.
It's you in your network, right?
Yep.
Who do you tap? How do I get equipment as fast as I can if something's a problem, right? So you have your vendors on the sales side, you have your vendors on the network side, you have vendors that you might say, hey, I need you for this. You're only as good as your network. In this industry, in Boston in general too, it's a very small world. Uh,
Yes.
you see people, you might not see them for 2 years, but they will pop up, and
They're
their,
right there.
their name may pop up on an email.
I
And
know.
what I would tell younger people, never burn a bridge. Uh,
Yes.
um, you know, it's not your family. You have to get along with your family. And a lot of times you have to get along with people that you work with. You might not like them. You might not sit down and break bread with them, but you might have to use them, to get your job done. Um, and, in my experience, I try to have the biggest network that I can, and be nice to people, reciprocate, right? Because sometimes they'll
Yes.
call you for a problem. Uh,
Mm.
the biggest thing I can say about that, in maintaining that network, is to answer your phone. Um,
Insert phone, email back. Email back. Yep.
Acknowledge people. Don't hide behind a text. Don't hide behind an email. Don't just ignore people. Yeah, there's a priority, and there's a you have to vet, what's your priority for that day. But if you want to stay in this business and you want to sell, and you want to maintain a customer base, you have to reach out. You have to answer the phone.
But
And whether it's you know within the normal business hours, someone's calling after. They're not. A lot of times, we reach out. You maintain those relationships, but a lot of times people aren't just calling to say hi. They're calling because they have a problem
yeah,
and they're calling you to help them with that problem.
yeah. You've been generous to tell us about networking but I think you could do better because you can give us some tricks because what I mean is, remember, so the newsletter, that's why we create the newsletter. So, and every time I have a chance to say it, there's a lot of things I didn't know. I have to learn it the hard way. It's like I didn't, I'm the first locksmith in my family.
Mhm,
I'm the first project manager in my family.
mhm.
I'm the first facility manager in my family. I'm not the first who has a business, but I'm operating in that realm. And you said it right. Sometimes you do your best to not burn bridges, but challenging arise. And sometimes you have to only bet on your character
Right.
and your reputation because things out of your control can spiral, right? But how do you go about networking? Like a guy like you, Eric, how do you go about networking?
Well, I think it goes back to, like I said, as simple as answering that phone call and following up and maintaining that base. A lot of times, and it's hard sometimes because we have a lot of municipal customers where sometimes they can't go out and socialize because of the rules they have in place. Which there's rules there for a reason. Um, but when you can, you stop by. The old school mentality of stopping by, and drop off, bring in a dozen donuts and a cup of coffee. That's still, even though, like,
That's
even
still
today,
fine.
we're talking on a Zoom call today, right? That's the technology we have today. I'm not, if this was if they had a podcast, but I had to come to your office, you'd have to come here, and I have to come to you. But the technology is working for us today.
Yes.
And I think it was obviously it was accelerated during COVID, right? Where that was kind of the norm,
Yes.
remote work and Zoom calls and whatever other Microsoft calls, that became the norm. But I still think you need the human element,
Yes.
in that networking. Not everything can be a text, not everything can be a Zoom call. I think you still have to go in and close the door and sit down and have that face-to-face interaction. And I think people still like that it's not so um, cold, just using technology. I still
Correct. Yes.
I still think you have to get in and talk face to face, in some aspects, to maintain that network and maintain a customer base and maintain people that you can reach out to and acknowledge them and just keep it the circle going, because even if it's not someone that you might deal with them 3 or 4 times a year, you still want to reach out and just say, hey, how's things going? How's the work going? Just to show that, hey, we're still here, and to keep that door open, in both ways. You know what I mean? Because if not, human nature is, someone else calls, they're gonna latch on to someone else that's
Yeah.
giving them attention, right?
You're
That's just
right. You're right. And thank you. One thing I always say is you gotta have a vision and you have to learn because think not everything gonna be green or an okay an agreement. So sometimes you have to be creative. So one thing I do is I do a lot of networking event where I spot somebody on LinkedIn. I make sure they know me, but if I see them in person, it's amplified because they already see me on LinkedIn. It's like a resume. Now they
right,
see me in person. So that, and maybe they see me in another event.
right.
Now they started to say, "Oh, this guy is legend. Let me open some opportunities for them." So let's say, would you choose this industry? Would you choose this same path, or is there something you like to focus on?
I think, with that, back then, the unknown, because everything, when you're part of something that's like cutting edge and you don't
Yeah.
know like what what I've done things different that I've learned back then. Sometimes it's you don't know if you're taking a risk sometimes
Yeah.
because you don't have anything to to equate it to
Agree with
sometimes.
you.
Like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
we got to get this done. What is, well, what are the first, a lot of things that we did, a lot of things we did for the federal government was never performed before.
Yeah.
So, the risk was like, well, so and so did it. That's how they did it, and they kind of blazed the trail. When you're doing things for the first time and it's a success, and things I think back to things that we did in 2004, for the Democratic National Convention, and we had to duplicate it down in New York for the Republican National Convention,
Yeah.
where we had to take 6 and 8 months worth of planning and put it into 6 weeks. You know,
Wow.
so yeah, and to come away from that, and I think back on some of the work that we did. What we did then is normal today.
Okay.
That's industry standard today on some of the concepts that we did. Now it cost more back then because it was, what I've seen in that time is that technology, the price of technology has come down
From
in,
that,
in
yes.
some things that we use and some of um, some of the tools and equipment that we use. That has come, it was thousands of dollars. Now it's hundreds of dollars. So with that, um, it's the normal business or company, they can use that equipment now where they were probably priced out of the market
Yeah.
25 years ago. They wouldn't even think of it because the cost was so astronomical. But like anything, right? It comes down to, it gets down to where people can afford it and it's practical. I mean, I would, you know, turning your thermostat on remote
Yeah.
25 years ago, setting your heat to turn your lights on. That was
I know.
that was like stuff. That was like
Voice activated. Yeah.
Hollywood stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and let's go on a day in Eric Johnson life as a PM for Lintel.
Oof.
What does it look like?
Well, we maintain, at Lantel, we have a customer base, we have service, we do new construction, we have one of for the low voltage, we're not an electrical company with the low voltage shop. We are strictly low voltage, which is CCTV access control, structured cabling, AV,
Yep.
sound masking,
Networking. Yep.
networking. So anything that's low voltage, we touch. We can do the cabling, we can install, we can put the devices in as well. So it's new construction, it's service. So, and to be in this industry right now, and it's just not me, it's other people. To use a sports term or a baseball term, you have to be a five-tool player. That's
Mhm.
we use that a lot. You have to have a little networking background. You have to have a little sales background. You have to have a little install background. You have to know, you know, so many facets, of ordering stock and having stock come in and moving stock and you
So
know,
basically, you need to be a sale guy. You need to be like a small PM, meaning you
yep,
have to place the order yourself, make sure it's there, and you need to be to execute, meaning do the cabling. And so is that the way you guys?
yeah, yes,
Wow.
you have to be an estimator, right? You have to go in
Yeah.
and say, hey, come look at this. I want to do this, and you walk the site and you go, okay, you need this, it's gonna cost this. You come back, we have people here, resources that we come back and check with, but you have to know what you're looking at. You have to know if I walk into a building and it's a drop ceiling or it's a hard ceiling, which okay,
Yeah.
drop ceiling, it's going to be a lot easier on the labor. Hard ceiling, it's going to be a little bit more labor, right? Because where are our access points?
Yeah.
The things that you look at, can we work there during the day? Does it have to be after hours? Does it have to be weekend work? Are we not, we don't want to upset that business,
I know.
and take away from their day-to-day opportunities or their daily work schedule. So you have to take a lot of things into play when you're looking for work and maintaining work. So there's you have to be well rounded. For someone to come in now and just be I only know how to do one thing, you're probably not going to survive. You have to have that.
Okay, I'm gonna push back on this because I wrote an article called "Why Generalists Burn Out" and like how scope discipline stabilize. And I'll give you this. You said it. Lintel is low voltage. That's your specialty.
Right.
But you also need your employees to have a general ideas of. So I don't know if you wanna, because some people said, "Oh no, you cannot be doing multiple things." I think you guys find a niche where that's low voltage. We're gonna just focus on low voltage, but any guys we're working with, or that's our employee, has to understand networking, IP, sales, make or to make an order or to do a site survey and estimate. I don't know if you wanna dive more on this.
Yeah, that's a great, because we get that question a lot. You know, we have salesmen here, right? I sell for what, for if an opportunity comes in, we have other people here that dedicated salesmen. But our true salesman every day for Lantel is our technicians. That's the face
Mm,
of Lantel, is the technician that's earning the trust of our customer and that relationship that they have with that technician. So they maybe our technicians, it goes hand in hand. Maybe they realize it, maybe they don't. Um, but they're our biggest sales guy, because if there's someone that and we have many customers, they'll request a certain person because they like their work, they like the way that they work
interact.
in their atmosphere, and that's great. I think that's great. The more people we have like that, I think it's great, for a customer. Um, so they're our sales guy in a nutshell, but they also know that that customer can trust them on anything.
Yeah.
What do I do here? Can we do it? And the people that say yes, 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 and then there's failure, right? You're not probably going to call that person back. You have to be honest with people and say, yes, it can be done. No, it can't be done. Or we can't do it, but I can find someone that can get you where you want to be. Um, and that keeps you within their confidence and their trust that they could call you, for anything that they need. So for our employees, yeah, we like to have someone that's well rounded, not an expert in everything, but
Mm,
good. Because if we do run into a problem here, we do have resources that they can hand it off and say, you know what, I went from step one to step five. It's not making sense. I need to hand it off to someone here that has more expertise so they can keep going, because we don't want anybody to get bogged down on a job, and that doesn't it doesn't work well for Lantel, and it doesn't work well for the customer.
you're right, and I experienced this in the facility management world where you you, you have a, let's say, a toilet clog. You don't need a plumber. The plumber gonna charge you his price in terms of like 400, 500 to just come in. But if you have a maintenance guy that's a generalist, meaning he can unclog that toilet, he can install a flush valve, like the basic things. Now you bring more value to your customer because now they don't have to pay that 1 hour
Right,
500, but you on contract
right.
because they already have something with you and you take care of everything else with them. Yeah,
The
good.
thinking about that, a lot of our work that, for us, using technology to an advantage is that, if we have remote access into a
Mm,
system. So instead of having to roll a truck or go on site, to log into a server or a computer or whatever, something that's IT or IP based that we have to work on, this doesn't mean I can't be sitting at my desk and look and do the same thing as long as I have that remote access in. Number one, it speeds up, um, delivery of services, that we can look at a problem quicker. Um, we don't have to go there, waste time parking, getting into a building, and we're right into the system. So our window to fix it is shortened, um, and we can maintain more customers that way than if we I would say 9 times out of 10, if someone calls, we could probably fix it remotely, or we can triage it remotely and say, hey, you know what? We think it's this. We do have to send someone, or hey, we did this until we can get somebody out there. Maybe it's a Friday afternoon, right?
Yeah.
And something, just doesn't look right, or something's not behaving right, or not working right. Can we fix it to say, hey, we're going to get you through the weekend till Monday. We'll have someone out there Monday, or do we have to send someone out there Friday night or Saturday night to do the same thing? So for us, anytime that we can get a remote session or get into a system remotely, that works to our benefit.
I agree. I agree. And let's talk about, because this is a term uh, I think I'm pushing more. It's the security professionals, right? But for somebody who doesn't know, let's say we have a listener who doesn't know what's the integrator. What's the difference between a locksmith and an integrator? But your question would be, Eric, what is an integrator for the non, like the average Joe or somebody who is not part of the industry?
Well, it's a different concepts. Someone will say, hey, like for instance, right? Something might happen. A good it's not a good thing, but a good example would be the Brown University shooting for security.
Yes.
Um, Everyone stopped and looked at their plans. Everyone saw what was happening down there locally, and I think maybe probably more through the country as well. That was a big story, and they said, "Oh, do we?
Are
Where are
we
our kids?
okay? Yep.
Like, what are we? We see what's happening down there. We're seeing things that happened." Um, Everyone kind of, all of a sudden we saw a spike in calls going, hey, we need to look at this. We need to look at this. We need to look at that. So with that, it's not to come in and wasn't come in and fix things. It was to say, hey, what do you think? Like we have a vulnerability here. What do you think that, what do we use to mitigate that? So an integrator, we take different concepts and come in and say, you know what, you might need a camera there. Oh, you know what? You might just need a gate there. You don't need an electronic device, to monitor it. You might need an old-fashioned gate or a fence or
Mm.
something to stop. So we come in with different concepts, and if it goes down the way of a low voltage device, then we bring in the best equipment or the best vendor that we think, and again, too, fitting budget. Now, anyone can come in and say, hey, that's going to cost you $20,000, right? Now, like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you can buy yourself out of anything. But
Yeah.
how do you come in, help your customer, help someone that has a need, stay within their budget, and keep it practical for them? That's what I think an integrator is.
Mm. Oh, and that's great because I put an article out saying the so the integrator has a lot of power and they still do, but I think there is a change, meaning the smarter people in that case is the OPM, right? The OPM can come in and they own the whole project and they bring the integrator, meaning the consultant might be a layer before the integrator. So, where do you see the industry going, or do you think Lintel is playing that role as well?
I think the industry is, well, we'll just talk about population rise.
Yeah.
When I was starting out, there was a lot of people my same age, not a lot of jobs, too many people, right? But we're seeing that across not just the trade industry. We're seeing that across probably every industry, right?
Yes.
Um, you're seeing that in law enforcement. You're seeing
Mhm.
that in people who work summer jobs,
Yeah.
just to work at Dunkin' Donuts, right? That they can't. There's not that glut of people to fill those roles, right? Um, in the country. So, um, right now, I think the opportunity is greater for anyone than any time in this country, that if they want to become a tradesperson. Because back when I was going in, you had to know someone had to hold that door for you.
Yeah.
um, you had to call a favor, and you had to, and they're going to go with the, oh well, you know, stayed in the family. My brother's an electrician, I became an electrician. Well, if your brother's good, you must be good too, right? And
Yeah.
you see that across other trades. But right now, I think that if you have some aptitude, um, and you want to get in and become, whether it's electrician or a low voltage technician, you probably have the greatest opportunity right now, than ever, probably in the history of the trades. That I think there was a stat. I always, the last couple of years, it was in the plumbing industry. I think it's for every six plumbers that retire, only three are coming into the trade. So that
Yeah.
just gets wider and wider. And I think you could say that, across other trades as well, that they're not replenishing as quick as people are retiring. Because, the baby boomers, which myself, I have about 7 more years before I retire. Who's coming behind me? And with that, you want to get the best person, to replace you, to work for you, to get to work for your company.
And thank you, Eric, because this is something that we talk about, we publish. We also had an article on sales and integration where we said no, now and ever the relationship between locksmith and integrator has to be solidified because not all integrator are comfortable with the mechanical part of it, where they're good with wiring the software, but that mechanical aptitude you're talking about, they not they're not there yet because some of them they just become low voltage without having
Right.
to install a maglock, an
Right.
electric spike, or an electric hardware. Do you agree that there's a synergy in that role where a locksmith can be acquired by an integrator or can partner with an integrator to make the work better, or the integrator can do like
Yeah.
it can be vice versa in terms of the
Yes.
relationship.
Yes. Definitely. Because in some of the space that we work in, we provide service for a lot of schools, right? A lot of school buildings, a lot of municipalities, and, some real estate companies where they have, a lot of door hardware. Not everything's hooked to access control, but there is a DMARC. We have, customers that are major campuses, that, there's 20 buildings that, I can't mention some of the names we work for, but, they have a campus of 20 buildings, and they rent them out, whether it's biolab space or,
Yep.
it could be a lawyer, whatever, right? They're in that space, but they maintain the system, the base building security, which is, comes into a lot of doors, and those doors get used a lot. So there is a DMARC where it's okay, what's electronic security, and what's, when you mention locksmith, what's locksmithing, right? But for us, we have to have a little bit of a locksmith mentality or
Yep.
aptitude to say, okay, we can fix this. We might be able to fix it, but we also have to know when to hand it off and bring a locksmith in, whether it's the crash bar, the lock, and something else upstream that
Yes.
we might have some general knowledge of, but we don't do it every day.
Yeah.
So we'd have to bring that expertise in, and we've done that. We've done that, and especially in Boston as well, because we have older buildings.
Yep.
Because I was at a place the other day. They had it's been around since the 1700s. They have
Yep.
doors that went in the 1800s. They're still using. How,
Yes.
how do you put today's technology on the door that was made in
I know.
1840?
Yeah, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, so
you have the craftsman's, yeah, skill for that.
so can we do it? Yeah, I don't want, maybe, but I don't want to ruin the door. I don't want to be on the hook. So you're bringing that expert for that, for the right person for the right job, right? And it just
Yes.
it makes everyone's life better at the end of the day. That we didn't destroy anything or we did it wrong, and it went in right. So, and again, that goes back to networking, right?
Yes.
Who do you who do you find for that
You
job?
know.
Who do
Yes.
you
You
know?
know.
Who do you
Yeah.
know? So I know the right person that could work in the store because we maintain that relationships with our other tradespeople.
Um, and you mentioned about let's like bringing younger, younger people, better talent, not better talent, younger talent to the industry. Any advice? Any things Lintel is doing to attract the next generation?
Yes. So we for the last 7 years, Lantel has maintained a co-op program with Madison Park Vocational High School. It's a Boston public school. It's the only vocational school in Boston. It's been there since probably back when I was in high school. I went to school, Boston Public School. I went to Charlestown High.
Yeah.
Um, and every high school back then had its own vocational. So Charlestown High had
Yeah.
electrical, and I think Brighton High School had sheet metal, and I think, and I might be wrong, I might be mislabeling them. I think South Boston High had automobile,
Yep.
mechanic. They condensed that into one school. It wasn't out in the neighborhoods that each
Mhm.
school had its own vocational talents. Um, so they absorbed these all into one high school, and I think in around 1980, which is the current Madison Park High School. And so what we do, because we're part of IBW Local 103, which has its own apprenticeship program, we become like a feeding system. So we take a co-op student from Madison Park, we introduce them to the trade. They're already learning that at
That's
school,
basis. Yep.
so they come work with us in the real world, summer help, or maybe a week on, week off, in high school. Um, and they're starting out with us, and pretty much we've had a very successful record that the people that started out with us have become our employees,
Okay.
and we've helped them get through the next, excuse me, graduate from high school. We help them get into IBW Local 103 Apprentice, which they call the JATC down at the 103 office in Dorchester, um, where they have to do a 5-year apprenticeship.
Okay. No, I made a case because we have the Door and Shake newsletter on Substack for our listeners, and Door and Shake podcast is also on Substack. So we published this newsletter. We said that America built the workforce, and then you remove the ladder. What it means is where we have more than 500,000 people getting laid off in the technology industry. And we saw the news. The way I see it is this can be a big opportunity for integrators because they already have the technology
Right,
background.
right.
But the problem is there a process to allow them to learn the further skills? You mentioned 5 skill tools. So let's say they have the first two or three. Is there a process to get them up to speed, an accelerator class to get them up to speed for the mechanical? That's what I'm advocating. That's why I think that's gonna help us next future.
Yeah. Yes, I think that someone if they started on the path of just straight IT and
Yes.
not nuts and bolts mechanical,
Yep.
yeah, I think again, not every the short answer is yes, because not everyone that's a mechanic, and they going to be an IT professional?
No.
No,
No.
no, but they know the building blocks. They know
Yes.
simple things that they can go in. Um, any of our technicians, right? You think of a tradesperson, with their tools in their pouch and going on the job. They need that, but their number one tool that they need for us, for our technicians at Lanto, they need a laptop.
Yes.
They cannot go into a job site without a laptop.
Mm.
Just they would be lost. They need that. That's something they use probably more than a screwdriver and a cordless screw gun is that laptop. And
That's a tool. That's a tool
their
too. Yep.
tool. That's their tool because everything is, the way the world is, everything is IT related, IP related. Everything has an IP device on it. There's tools that you have to use that that are that, that they keep on their computer to test things. So that's then what I see. The number one tools, and there's other tools that we use too as well, that have come along to make our life easier. But that computer is their number one tool. And if we were to take all their computers away and say go out into we wouldn't have many customers.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Makes sense. So, we get into this segment called "My Life or Your Life." Is a segment where we talk about things in the industry you like and things you don't like. So, I don't know if Eric has anything he doesn't like, but that's your chance to kind of talk about things you like in the industry and things you like to change or things you don't like to see.
Eddie, that could take another hour. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Um, Well, the number one thing coming from, again, being on the cusp of tech, everything, with phones and computers and how they've accelerated in the trade. Um, there's no resource that you cannot wrap your hands around. Like a lot of times the guys, hey, how'd you figure that out? Oh, I watched a YouTube video. I watched this, or I went on Reddit, or I went on a blog site, and they were talking about. There's so many resources out here now. I wish I had back when I was starting out, because back then I was just calling technical support on the phone call and be on there for hours trying to figure it out, and not a video, and
On
someone trying
YouTube.
to talk you through things. But with that said, too, I wish I had that. What I wish I didn't have sometimes was a smartphone, because um, things ever accelerated that everyone wants everything fixed right away, and they wanted it fixed an hour ago.
Yes.
And and back then, when I was starting out, we had beepers, right? We didn't have
Yeah.
cell phones. We had email, but you had to go to your desk to get the email. So the beeper went off, then you had to go find a phone. And I'm probably showing my age on some people that are watching here, but that's what we did, right? You had to find a payphone, call in, see what was going on. So the window of trying to just get the information was really wide. That information of getting information has shortened. But I think with that too is that you don't have a lot of sometimes time to breathe, um, and space things out sometimes, on the amount of work that we get. And I wish that we could, we have a glut of work, and I wish we could stretch that out to schedule it. I think back then it was easier to schedule. Now, because everyone wants it instant, and because they can get a hold of people quicker, um, I just sometimes I wish we went back to when we just had beepers sometimes, and it's a little more simple.
I agree.
When you can manage your day,
No, I see.
my biggest thing is time management.
Now, that's get us to work-life balance. Is it a concept you embrace, or is it something you don't think it's applicable?
Well, there's some things that you can go in and work 9 to 5 and leave your job at the door and don't worry about it until the next morning, and or go home for the weekend and worry about it Monday. The space that we work in, it's a lot of our customers are 24/7.
Okay.
So that's the life. It's the life you chose.
Yeah.
So
Pretty
you
cool
know,
environment. Yeah.
it's someone that thinks that, yeah. And there's a lot of our technicians. We try not to bother them. We have on-call technicians, but for us who are like the air traffic controllers at 10,000 feet as the call comes in and triaging things, it comes with the territory. I mean, it just that's the you have to be that way. It just comes with it. So someone that I shouldn't say likes that lifestyle, but they should not be surprised that that's the lifestyle that you're getting into. And it does go back to a work-life balance. But at the end of the day, the customers pay your bills, right? And
Yeah.
you gotta find that middle ground
Yeah.
and you can't be 100% on work. You can't be. You have to have that life balance, definitely. But that's up to the unique person, I think, on how they multitask. If you
No,
can't multitask, then I would say don't come to this trade if you can't multitask. You have to know what's priority and what's, it's almost like listening to if you have children, what's a real cry and what's a fake cry.
yeah.
I think you have to use that in this industry as well.
Yeah. No, no, definitely. Well said. Um, any last word for us as we getting closer to this interview and we dive in. And one thing I wanted to ask you before your last word is now the industry is growing and I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to bring younger people on maybe ownership opportunities. I don't see that. I don't hear it. But I think if if we can say that the industry is great, we have to get them in the
Right,
table as well. So make sure they understand what is
right,
intake and then what's the industry can bring them.
right.
So,
Well, I think something to be said about that. And number one, I welcome the opportunity, for the introduction, and being on your show here, and I thank you very much for the invite. Um, I think what it comes down to is not, you have, I think people look at it as the college world and they look at the vocational world, right? And I think it comes down to not everyone can be a tradesperson, and I don't think not everyone is ready for college. But
yeah,
in the same breath, try it. You might like it. Just don't shut yourself out.
yeah,
Some people go to college, they go, it's not for me, but they went and tried it, right? Some people go there and they love it. And they
yeah.
was like, wow, I succeed here. So the same thing with trades. I think some things can be intimidating, but I think you should at least look at it. Don't just shut it out. Um, and with that as well, and you see this, some people that go, and I don't want to get down a rabbit hole with this, but people go to college. Well, what's the ROI, right? What's the return on the investment? You know, am I gonna go take on $150,000, $200,000
Yep,
in costs for the prestige of going to a school, and then get out and only make $65,000 a year and have that loan for the rest of my life, or maybe look at the trade, a vocational trade, where you're getting paid. The schools, you might have to pay a little bit to go to school, or if you luck out and you're accepted to the IBW, and it's free. Um,
and,
you're going to
and
have a good.
employers paying for them too.
Exactly,
I know
right,
employers are
right,
paying.
right.
If the right
Yes,
guy,
right.
employers gonna pay for you to go to the trade school.
That's an incentive, right? As well, I've seen that as well, where they'll pay for you. But I would think, don't close your mind. If you're thinking about it, try it. At least you tried it. If you don't, if it doesn't, if not for you, at least you tried it. When I was 18, I because my brother was an electrician, and at the time electricians were making the most pay
Yeah,
out of all the trades. Then I was like, well, I picked a good trade because I was making the most money at the time.
yeah.
That had a lot to do with it. But for what the technicians get paid, they get paid a good wage, but they do a lot of good work too. So I think that if you do a good job, you should be paid well as well, and you should have good benefits, which is an incentive to get up every day and go to work, because you provide for your family and you have good benefits. But it should go hand in hand. You should be paid that wage if you're performing a good job.
And it's future proof too, because I'm not saying robot not coming for us, but it's gonna take a lot of time to really get. You're still gonna need the mechanical part of it, the human side of it. So
I agree with that. AI, I see some, in some trades, or some industries where, yep, that the robots or AI will replace that person that did that job. But I think, for where we are, yeah, some of it, but I don't really see that happening. Because you're
maybe
still.
the cabling,
I'm
cabling.
sorry.
Sorry, Maybe on the cabling side, they might have a robot that run the wires, whatever, but it still make us faster, better.
In that aspect of it, on new construction, yes. But to go in, I'm sure they'll come out with new ideas to make that, faster and stronger to get the building up and cut costs. But I think if you're in the maintenance side of it, I think you're always gonna need that human element. I don't care what it is. You
Yes.
need that human element to go in and figure out what's going on and make a decision and on how you're gonna fix things or adapt to something that, again, I have an old building. How do I get new technology in here? You still need someone with that has the brains, a human brain, to come in and figure that out.
Um, so thank you, Eric. Great to have you. Eric is the PM for Lintel, and he was kind enough to be here with us on this The Handshake podcast, where we dive deep into his career and then what's the future look like. But one thing I'm putting out there is something we are trying to get everybody to help us is we are creating a fund where we will select some younger students to go to some shows. Like it's not because I did it when I was at the school. What it
Mhm.
was is we create a lab, and when we recruit student and they seen the IT, they seen the camera, they seen everything they play, they see in the movies, and that's convert better as a career opportunity. So my goal is I'm no longer at the school is to get some sponsorship where we can get some selected students, selected like younger people to go to a show.
Right.
Aloha, I see West, so because that's where they're gonna see their self as a future. So I'm putting out there. So we don't have a big sponsor yet, but we're hoping we can get some guys that can help us. Last word for you, Eric.
Yeah, so that's I can't. You reminded me of something because even though we have the co-op, along the
Yeah.
lines we just mentioned, even though we have the co-op system at Madison Park High School, and those students, like, students just went back for career day to show, to talk to students and how their career path and how they got to where they are and how they navigated, getting into apprenticeship school. We also sponsor a robotics class at the Berea School in Mattapan, and
Okay.
um, and it's I believe it's like fifth grade to eighth grade students, and we sponsored them the last 2 years, and they go to a robotics competition down in Florida,
Wow. Wow.
um,
Perfect.
and these kids just blew me away on what they know on the concepts that they have and how and they built this robot from scratch. So I see that if they're doing that at
At that
third
age.
grade, fifth grade, eighth grade
Yeah.
level, right? What, they're going to take that. They're learning that now. The building blocks they have now. That's the future. That's the
Yes.
future. And when we are very proud of helping out the Berea School with that startup robotics class. Our owner Joe Bodie was very generous to help, as well, and have that vision. And so the same thing along along the lines that you just said. We would be very we'd like to participate in that with anything that you bring forward. I know Lantel would want to be a sponsor or help that with our workforce to get the word out to keep the workforce strong.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. It was fun. It was great having you. So this is Eddie Dassis with the Door Handshake podcast, and we had Eric Johnson from Lintel. We be with us today.